You're staring at a bank statement that shows more zeros than your government salary should ever produce. The Porsche in your driveway costs triple your annual income. Your kid goes to a private school that senators can barely afford. And every month, a mysterious wire transfer hits your offshore account like clockwork. You're not just bending the rules anymore. You're a full-blown traitor with a pension plan. It wasn't supposed to go this far. 5 years ago, you were the model agent. Top marks at the farm. Fluent in 3 languages. A genuine believer in the whole truth, justice, and American way propaganda they fed you. But belief doesn't pay for your mother's experimental cancer treatment. Patriotism doesn't cover your brother's legal bills after his business partner cleaned out their accounts and vanished. The agency promised you'd be taken care of. Instead, they gave you a salary that barely covers rent in DC and told you sacrifice was noble. Then came the assignment that changed everything. You got posted to a diplomatic station in Eastern Europe, former Soviet state, still figuring out which direction to face. Your job was recruiting assets inside the local government. Standard stuff. Find vulnerable people, exploit their weaknesses, turn them into sources. You were good at it. Maybe too good. Because the people you were learning to manipulate were the same kind of desperate you were becoming. Your partner at the station was a guy named Marcus. Senior case officer, 15 years in the field, the kind of agent who'd seen enough to stop being surprised by anything. Marcus ran his operations clean, by the book. He had this annoying habit of actually believing in the mission, which made you feel worse about the thoughts that were starting to form in the back of your head. One night, Marcus took you to a diplomatic reception. Standard networking event. Champagne that tasted like money and conversations that meant nothing. That's where you met Victor. Russian intelligence, though his business card said cultural attaché. Everyone in the room knew what he really was. He wasn't some shadowy figure in a trench coat. He was charming, educated, wearing a suit that cost more than your car. He made a joke about the cheap wine. You laughed. He asked about your work in the vaguest possible terms. You deflected professionally. He handed you his card, smiled, and walked away. Marcus watched the whole exchange from across the room. He told you to be careful. Said Victor had a reputation for spotting weakness the way a shark spots blood in water. You told Marcus you could handle it. You threw Victor's card away that night. You fished it out of the trash 3 weeks later when the hospital called about your mother's bills. The first meeting was innocent enough. Coffee at a cafe in Vienna during a layover. Victor asked nothing classified. He wanted to know about workplace culture, bureaucratic frustrations, the kind of stuff you'd complain about to any friend. He listened like a therapist. At the end, he slid an envelope across the table. 10,000 euros. He said it was a consulting fee for your time. You should have walked away. You should have reported it immediately. Instead, you bought your mom 2 more months of treatment. The second meeting, he asked for something small. Not classified documents or state secrets. He wanted to know the name of a mid-level analyst working the Eastern European desk. That's it. Just a name. He offered $50,000. You told yourself it wasn't real espionage. It was just HR information, practically public if someone tried hard enough. You took the money. You gave him the name. That analyst got reassigned to a desk job in Kansas 3 months later. You never asked why. That's how they hook you. Not with one massive betrayal, but with 1,000 tiny compromises that individually seem survivable. Each one adds another link to the chain until you realize you're not walking toward the exit anymore. You're being dragged deeper. For 2 years, you played the game carefully. You fed Victor intelligence that seemed important but was actually outdated or partially declassified. You gave him names of agents who were about to retire anyway. You provided reports on operations that had already been compromised through other channels. You convinced yourself you were running a controlled burn, taking the money while minimizing actual damage. You were the smartest person in the room, playing both sides. Meanwhile, Marcus kept being Marcus. Solid, reliable, annoyingly moral. He started noticing things. Not the money. You were careful about that. But the way you'd disappear for a few hours during assignments. The way your report sometimes omitted details that should have been there. The way you'd get quiet after certain phone calls. One night over drinks at a bar near the station, he looked at you and said something that hit like a bullet. He said you'd changed. Said you used to be the guy who stayed late to get things right. Now you were the guy who left early and hoped nobody noticed. You laughed it off. Told him he was getting paranoid in his old age. He didn't laugh back. Just finished his drink and said he hoped you knew what you were doing. The look in his eyes told you he already suspected something. He just couldn't bring himself to believe it. Then the agency started an internal mole hunt. After a series of blown operations in Eastern Europe, counterintelligence launched a sweep. Mandatory polygraphs for everyone with access to certain programs. Financial audits disguised as routine security updates. The walls started closing in. You watched colleagues you'd known for years get escorted out by security, their careers vaporized overnight. Some were guilty. Most were just unlucky enough to have a suspicious pattern in their metadata. You passed your first polygraph through sheer preparation. You controlled your breathing. You focused on technical truths. When they asked if you'd ever provided classified information to a foreign national, you thought about the word classified and how the documents you'd shared were technically downgraded. The machine said you were clean. But the examiner looked at you a second too long before dismissing you. Marcus passed his polygraph in 9 minutes, clean as glass. He came out and clapped you on the shoulder, said it was nothing, said the mole hunt was probably chasing ghosts. You smiled and agreed while your stomach tried to digest itself. That's when Victor made his real demand. He called you on a burner phone you didn't know he had the number for. He didn't ask this time, he told you. There was an operation running in Syria, deep cover agents embedded with a resistance group. Victor needed their identities, locations, and contact protocols. This wasn't intelligence brokering anymore. This was sentencing people to death. You said no. For the first time in 2 years, you actually said no. Victor's voice didn't change. He texted you a photo. Your daughter walking out of her school. Another photo. Your mother in her hospital bed, machines keeping her alive. A third photo. Your bank statements, highlighted and annotated, showing a clear pattern of deposits that would take a forensic accountant about 11 minutes to trace. He gave you 48 hours. He said if you went to your superiors, the evidence would be on the director's desk before you finished your confession. He said you'd made your choice 2 years ago. Now you just had to live with it. You sat in your car in the station parking lot for an hour, staring at nothing. Your phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. He was asking if you wanted to grab dinner. His wife was making that pasta you liked. Normal stuff. The kind of message a friend sends when he doesn't know his friend is drowning. You almost called him, almost told him everything. Marcus would know what to do. Marcus always knew what to do. But telling Marcus meant destroying yourself, and the selfish part of you, the part that took that first envelope, wasn't ready for that. Instead, you drove home, kissed your daughter goodnight, sat in your office with the door locked, and stared at the wall until 3 a.m, running scenarios. Every option ended badly. Cooperate with Victor, and people die. Refuse, and your family gets destroyed. Confess, and you go to prison for decades. Run, and the agency hunts you down within a week. Then, you thought about Marcus. Not as a friend, as a resource. Marcus had access to the Syria operation files. He'd mentioned it casually last week, how he was running support logistics for the embedded team. His credentials could pull the documents Victor wanted. If you could get into Marcus's workstation for 15 minutes, you could copy everything and leave no trace that pointed to yourself. The mole hunt would eventually zero in on Marcus, his access, his proximity, his recently flagged travel to a conference in Istanbul that happened to coincide with a known Russian intelligence gathering. You'd be framing the one person in the building who actually trusted you. The thought made you physically sick. You went to the bathroom and threw up. Then you washed your face, looked in the mirror, and started planning how to do it. The next morning, you arrived at the station early. Marcus was already there, because Marcus was always there. He was reviewing cables at his desk with a coffee that smelled like it was brewed during the Cold War. He looked up and smiled. Asked if you were okay. Said you looked like you hadn't slept. You told him you had a stomach bug. He said his wife had a remedy. He'd bring some tomorrow. The casual kindness felt like a knife. You waited until Marcus left for a meeting at 11. You had his schedule memorized. The meeting would run 90 minutes minimum. You walked to his workstation. The hallway was empty. Your hands were steady, which disturbed you more than if they'd been shaking. Shaking would mean you still had a conscience. Steady meant you'd already made your peace with what you were. His computer was locked. You knew his password because he'd typed it in front of you 100 times. Marcus wasn't careless. He just trusted you. The same trust that made him a good partner was about to make him the prime suspect in an espionage investigation. The files were exactly where he'd mentioned. Syria operational details, agent identities, contact protocols, extraction plans. You copied everything to a micro drive in under 8 minutes. You cleared the access logs. You walked back to your desk and sat down like nothing happened. Marcus came back from his meeting 20 minutes later. He dropped a container on your desk. His wife's soup. For your stomach bug. You thanked him without looking up because you couldn't trust your face not to betray you. That evening you met Victor at a park bench 3 miles from the station. You handed him the drive. He plugged it into a laptop, verified the contents, and nodded. He transferred the payment. $200,000. More money than you'd ever received for a single delivery. Blood money, though you wouldn't know how much blood for another 3 weeks. Victor stood up and said something you'd replay in your head for years. He said you'd finally become what he always knew you could be. Not an asset, not a source, a professional. He walked away, and you sat on that bench until the sun went down, watching joggers and dog walkers move through the park, like the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. 3 weeks later, 2 embedded agents in Syria went dark, then a third. The station was in chaos. Emergency extraction protocols activated. Marcus was running point, working 20-hour days trying to locate the missing operatives. You watched him burn himself to the ground, trying to save people you'd already sold. They found the first agent's body in a ditch outside Aleppo. The second was never recovered. The third managed to escape across the Turkish border, barely alive, with burns covering 60% of his body. He'd been interrogated for 11 days before the captors got bored and set him on fire. The mole hunt accelerated. Counterintelligence tore through every file, every communication, every access log. And just like you'd planned, the trail led to Marcus, his workstation access, his knowledge of the operation, his Istanbul trip. The circumstantial case was devastating. They pulled Marcus out of a briefing on a Tuesday afternoon. 2 security officers flanked him. He didn't resist, didn't shout, just looked across the room at you with an expression you'll never forget. It wasn't anger, it wasn't accusation. It was confusion. Pure, unfiltered confusion. Like a dog that doesn't understand why it's being hit. You looked away. Marcus was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. His security clearance was suspended. His wife called you that night, crying, asking what was happening. You told her you didn't know. You told her Marcus was strong and it would work out. Each word tasted like poison. The investigation took 4 months. Marcus maintained his innocence throughout. Polygraph after polygraph, interview after interview. He never broke because there was nothing to break. He was telling the truth. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the agency needed someone to blame. They offered Marcus a deal. Resign quietly. No prosecution, no public record. Just a silent erasure of a 15-year career dedicated to service. The alternative was a trial that would destroy his family and probably end with a conviction based on circumstantial evidence that a jury wouldn't understand well enough to question. Marcus took the deal. He resigned on a Thursday, packed his office in a single box. You weren't there when he left. You couldn't be. But you heard later that he stopped at your empty desk on his way out, stood there for a minute, then left without a word. 6 months later, you're still at the agency, still passing intelligence to Victor, still depositing money in offshore accounts. The mole hunt is closed, the case is solved. Marcus took the fall and the machinery moved on. You got promoted last month. The irony would be funny if it weren't so perfectly grotesque. The guy who sold out his own people is now running the department that's supposed to catch people exactly like him. Marcus drives for a delivery company now. You know because you looked him up. 15 years of service, 3 languages, a medal he can never talk about, and he's delivering packages for $12 an hour. His wife left him. His kids think he's a traitor. The intelligence community is small enough that everyone knows his name and what he supposedly did. He can't get a security clearance, can't get a government job, can't even get hired at a defense contractor because his file has a red flag that will follow him until he dies. You did that. Not Victor, not the agency, you. Some nights you sit in your home office and stare at the offshore account balance. The number keeps growing. Your mother's treatment is covered. Your daughter's school is paid for. Your house is beautiful. Your car is fast. From the outside, your life looks like success. But here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't feel like a single moment. It feels like a sound. A low, constant hum that you can almost ignore during the day, but that gets louder at night. It's in the walls. It's in the silence between conversations. It's in the way you can't look at photographs of you and Marcus without feeling something crack behind your ribs. Your phone buzzes. Victor has a new request. Something about a NATO intelligence sharing protocol. You pick up the phone and start reading because that's what you do now. That's all you are. Somewhere across the city, Marcus is loading boxes into a van. He still doesn't know who destroyed his life. He still doesn't know it was the person who ate his wife's soup and laughed at his jokes and promised they'd have each other's backs no matter what. You told yourself the first envelope was just survival. The second was just a name. The third was just a file. But somewhere along the way, you stopped counting. And now you're sitting in a corner office with blood on your hands and a promotion on your wall. And the only honest thing you can say about yourself is that you're exactly the kind of person you swore you'd never become. The phone keeps buzzing. You keep answering. Because that's what tools do. They get used until they break. And you haven't broken yet. But Marcus's face in that briefing room, the confusion, the betrayal, the absolute inability to understand why this was happening to him. That face visits you every single night. And each time, the crack behind your ribs gets a little wider. One day, it'll split open completely, and whatever falls out won't be something you can put back together. But today, you answer the phone. Today, you do the job. Today, you pretend you're still a person and not just a machine that runs on guilt and wire transfers. Victor says, "Good morning." You say it back. And somewhere in that exchange, buried under layers of tradecraft and self-deception, is the truth you'll never speak out loud. You miss your friend, and you're the reason he's gone.